Greetings, everyone. On behalf of the Interaction Design discipline here at NIT Bangalore, we are delighted to welcome you all to the first session of IXD Symposium for this year. IXD Symposium is our platform for bringing together designers, academicians, and experts to reflect on the evolving landscape of design. It's where we explore the intersections between design, technology, and human experience, sometimes asking big questions and occasionally finding answers that surprise even us. This year, our theme centers on AI and its intersection with interaction design, how emerging intelligence is not just a tool in the designer's kit, but it's an active collaborator, sometimes even a provocator. It's about exploring possibilities, questioning long held assumptions, and asking what happens when the principles of human centered design meet the evolving instincts of machine intelligence. So, welcome everyone. For our first session, we are delighted to have with us Professor Venkatesh Rajamanickam, head of the IDC School of Design at IIT Bombay. He leads the Information Design Lab, which blends graphic design, interactive computer graphics, data processing algorithms, and emerging technologies to address complex challenges in data, design, and art. His research spans areas from public understanding of science and urban living to education, politics, and generative art, making him a designer who can speak about city traffic and AI creativity with equal fluency. So today he'll be talking to us about AI and interaction design, its possible futures, an exploration of how and what happens when AI begins shaping its own ways of interacting with humans, potentially rewriting the playbook that HCI has relied on for decades. We are delighted to hand it over to you, Professor, to take us through this perspective, and let's see where it's headed. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Harsh, and the organizers of this symposium. I believe this is a student initiative, so that's really fantastic, and I'm delighted to be here. As Harsh mentioned in the introduction, I just became the head of the department, head of the School of Design at IDC School of Design at IIT Bombay about 10 days ago. So I'm kind of inundated with work and I'm just running between meetings. So I kind of rushed in to this one, just to be on time. It's nice to see so many of you. 56, that's a large number. So it's kind of putting a pressure on me as well. So I hope that in the next hour, we have some productive conversation, and I hope that I can leave you with some thought-provoking ideas about where interaction design is headed and what we can do about it. Okay. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and get started with the talking part of my presentation, and then eventually um, we will discuss. Harsh has helpfully send me a list of questions that I've printed out next to me, and some of it will be covered in the top part of what I'm going to say, and if not, we will take it up in the discussion part. Okay. Um, while I'm talking, you can also keep putting in your questions in the chat window, and then we pick it up those as well. Okay. So EA interaction design possible futures is it's kind of a speculative in nature, the talk that I'm doing, and I have been teaching this course called design fiction in IDC for about 10 years now, and we use design fiction as a design as one of the design methods to explore and think about potential futures and where it is headed, and what is the role of interaction in designing them. We have talked about things like data and humans. We have explored themes around tangible interactions, ubiquitous computing, and so on and so forth in various years of this course. And then AI is what we are exploring this year, and this is a version of the talk that I gave at the international seminar on design education, AI and design education, about a few months ago. That was in March this year. Okay, so did something happen to my screen? No, right? You can still
No,
see my
no.
screen.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can still
Yeah.
see.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So with that background, and with the disclaimer that it is speculative in nature, and the intention of this presentation is to provoke and think around some ideas, and not really present something that is very concrete. So it's kind of tentative in nature. Okay, and that's the disclaimer I would like to do at the start. Okay, so I'm going to start with the screen, and what you see is one of the standard, kind of features that you find in almost any image editing tool. No, this is the lowest version of any imaging tool, which is the Microsoft Paint, right? And Microsoft Paint has this interesting AI feature, which allows you to select part of it and then delete it, and there is some intelligence built into it that kind of fills in all the tedious effort that is required to lasso out something like this. About 5 years ago, it would require a lot of heavy hand-eye coordination, dexterity with your mouse, and sufficient proficiency with the tool in order to achieve this. But that now this become extremely easy, right? So, of course, with your mobile phones and the kind of latest apps that you guys have, you could do a lot more with it, right? And this is the kind of, I mean, this is now fundamentally changing with some of the things, some of the cornerstones of uh, uh, HCI and interaction design. Okay. So what is happening here? The principle that is involved in this is called direct manipulation, right? So direct manipulation is that you're able to directly manipulate something on the screen, and this was a kind of a path-breaking paradigm in interaction design when it came, okay, about 40 years ago, that one could actually manipulate something digital and virtual in its character as if you could manipulate things in the physical world, right? So I have this mouse in front of me, I can physically manipulate it. And we know how to manipulate objects and things around us in the real world. And this is something that is embodied in who we are, right? And we have evolved with this capability, and it follows the laws of physics, and therefore we kind of it's ingrained into us, right? And we start to do this very quickly, as we acquire the motor skills, and we are able to manipulate things. Children at a very young age start to manipulate. They may be clumsy in the beginning, they get better at it. As they acquire fine motor skills and so on, right? So you don't need to teach something like this, and because it comes naturally to us, right? And then this was kind of something that, as I said, path breaking, because we could, until that point of time, that was we were manipulating things, right? Basically, we were manipulating ones and zeros, through some kind of a complex intermediate language to make something, through command line interface, right? To something that it actually, physically manipulate, as if you would physically manipulate things in real life, right? So that, suddenly enabled us to do many things and think of generally improved capability, right? It's kind of this one huge leap, in what. So because we were able to bring in something that is familiar, when we were able to exploit our already inbuilt capability, right, of object manipulation, but in the virtual space, right? So if you think about a screen, right, there is nothing. So we're kind of making this make-believe world, and we are manipulating it through this remote mechanism called a mouse and a cursor, and it is slightly non-intuitive, but then once you get a hang of it, it is okay, right? It's kind of close to what it's not actually like manipulating the reality. You don't get the touch and feel and the texture and the weight of things that you manipulate, because it is happening virtually. But at least all the characteristics of physical manipulation, that things happen in predictable ways and seem to um, work and behave in certain ways, and then they obey certain laws, right? And therefore we can grasp it, we can understand it, right? So Schneiderman was the guy who coined this terminology called direct manipulation. So this is a step beyond programming language, because programming languages were the only way to manipulate things, until that point of time. Now we were able to directly manipulate, right? So I mean, you have to think about the times when this happened, right? And this is really mind blowing, right? And then he also, in this paper, talks about this very interesting thing, right? What he's doing is kind of doing a design fiction, right? He's speculating. Um, so he says, in the beginning of this paper, that he wrote in 1983, that why not make airline reservations by showing the user a map, uh, prompting for cursor motion to the departing and arrival cities, then use a calendar to select the date, a clock to indicate the time, and the plain seating plan with diagonal lines across already reserved seats, right? I mean, he's kind of, his imagination is going wild, right? And then he's thinking about all these things you can do with direct manipulation. Imagine a actual seat plan, of the airline where seats that have been taken are crossed off, and then it indicates the seat that you can take, right? So he's thinking about all the possibilities. Now, as we know that, all these things have come to pass, right? Because direct manipulation just got better and better and better, right? And then they also talked about, they kind of took it one step further, and then he's talking about not just, the things that you can manipulate, but then you can also think about direct manipulation, versus interface agents, right? And then our friend Donald Ronald writes a paper in 1994 where he says that how might people interact with agents, right? So he's talking about not just every single individual thing that you have to do in order to accomplish a task, but kind of this a suite of actions, or a kind of collection of tasks that understands and does. So you kind of know that it's not about you're stuck at the level where you have to book a reservation, that you select a date, departing date, select an airline, you select the time of the flight, you select the seat plan, etc., etc. Right? Basically, one large goal is broken down into subtasks, and then you kind of do it yourself, every single thing, right? So it essentially means that you're doing the whole thing, and in a sequential manner, just like you would do anything in real life, right? For example, if I have to cook, then I have to take the vegetables, I have to chop them, I have to prepare this, I have to boil water, I have to all of that, right? So basically, it's made up of subtasks that you do together, and in order to achieve the goal of maybe satiating your hunger or whatever, right? And then you kind of feel eat, and that the goal is to eat. But the agents that these people, Schneiderman and Don Norman, are talking about are things that kind of figure out what are the steps that are involved to achieve a goal, right? So he says that, you just say that I want to go to Bangalore, right? And I'm sitting here in Bombay, and I kind of prefer it at a time, and I mean, and when it is not too crowded in Bangalore, which I think is never, but but I suppose you can say, I want to reach a time where, I don't spend more than 3 hours on the road to get to my place from the airport. And, the price is, whatever range out. So, and then the agent figures out what you want, and then, it kind of does all the intermediate steps and all that, right? Now, the solution that they were imagining is, or possible at that point of time, which, it's all entirely algorithm driven and logic driven, right? Is that, it is possible that the system will know so much that it can actually do this for you better than you yourself can do it, right? Now, there is no AI involved. There is no intelligence involved. It's basically figuring out all the possible combinations for all of these things, and then having the data to figure out everything, right? For example, it knows the traffic pattern in Bangalore, it knows the weather conditions, it knows the price fluctuation in flights, and it knows which airlines are punctual and which airlines are sloppy with their timings, etc., etc. And then it does it for you, and there is no intelligence in it. It's everything is pre-programmed. So somebody who's designing the system, right, kind of has completely understood the needs of the users, and he is kind of creating this system so that it does it for him. better than he himself will do it, meaning that, I mean, he can do it, but, you might miss one or two steps, or he might not know that, this data is useful in this context, or it might take him very long to do it, or you might have to go to multiple places to get the required information in order to do this, right? Now, all of this is, present in one place, and then you can do it, right? So if you think about our IT infrastructure, the IT problem solving that exists, until the time just before AI arrived, is about this, right? So some software are good, some software companies are better than other software companies. Why? Because they do this problem solving better than others, right? So it requires, conceptualizing the architecture of the problem, and then breaking it down and enabling, and then, accomplishing it, right? So this is simple problem solving, right? It's an engineering problem with some design elements into it, which is where, the usability preferences, and, all of that thing comes in. Okay. So for decades, HCI and AI remain separate. AI focused on intelligence and on autonomous reasoning. HCI on usability and so HCI, AI and HCI share a common interest in human technology interaction, but they approach it from divergent angles. Okay? Both fields initially viewed humans as cognitive machines, okay, influenced by physical symbol system hypothesis that was proposed by Newell and Simon in 1976, which is kind of this basic seminal work done by Newell and Simon in 1976. You can look up the paper, and the paper's name is Physical Symbol System Hypothesis. Okay, which posited that intelligence arises from symbol manipulation, which is similar to computing or computation. Okay, AI sought to replicate or replace human intelligence. I mean, I'm talking about the pure or the original AI, right? Not the generative AI. Right? I'm talking about the first AI, right? While HCI aimed to augment human capabilities through usable technologies, right? Usable technologies means that something that understands the context and context of use, who the users are, and what is convenient for them, right? But there are this methodological and epistemic differences between that AI and HCI, right? And even though they kind of have the same roots, right? AI has historically followed the rationalistic approach, right? Assuming that thought can be captured, right? Human thought can be captured in symbolic representations governed by algorithmic rules. Okay? This paradigm, rooted in logic and optimization, underpinned the early AI efforts to create intelligent programs. Okay? HCR, on the other hand, has embraced the design approach, right? Which is where we guys are, come in, right? Focusing on interaction between users and the environments rather than the internal cognitive models. Okay. In design, usability is tested iteratively through prototypes, not calculated in advance. There is nothing like an ideal state that you want to achieve, because we do not know what that ideal state, right? You kind of get to a state where it is sufficiently satisfactory, and therefore, you're okay with it, right? We do not know if that is the best system. But in engineering, you have an ideal state, right? There is a bridge that you can construct that can withstand so much of load. It will last for so many years, and it can withstand certain level of earthquakes and so on and so forth, right? It is a solved problem in engineering, right? So you kind of can build a solution for it that can, so you can calculate in advance what you want and get there. Okay, so engineering problems are like that, right? It's kind of deterministic in nature, right? But design problems are not. Okay, they are always tentative. Uh, the design, so you cannot calculate in advance a process that accommodates human behaviors that are too complex to model. Okay, we cannot, it's very hard to model human behavior. You can model material behavior, you can model other kinds of natural phenomena like, earthquakes and wind and weather and degradation, corrosion, etc., etc. But it's very hard to model human behavior. We kind of do a good job of it, because of a lot of experiences and iterative process that we have. Okay, these differences have created the differences. AI is quantitative, data driven, and HCI is more qualitative and context sensitive. Okay, so that is the key difference. All right, so this I think I want to kind of lay it out, right? And between the older, it's older AI, right? The traditional or the legacy AI, and the current AI that we are all totally stumped by. Okay, so now with AI shaping human experience at scale through generative models, right? Adaptive systems and algorithmic interfaces. Now it seems to be different, right? So AI tried very hard to model human behavior, the thought process, right? How we think, right? It is possible that we can actually replicate a machine which can think like humans, and with more computing power and etc., it can think better than humans, right? They become superhumans, etc. That was the original goal of AI, right? And then it just faltered because it just couldn't model human behavior, and therefore, it just did not work. Initially, they had also had computing problem bottlenecks, right? That they could only process so much and all that. But then, even if that was crossed, then it was simply impossible to model here human thought process, and even more harder to model human behavior, right? So they kind of gave up on it, and basically that's when you went through this, it's AI winters, right? AI winters. You must have heard about, right? After the 90s, all this, people who are very gung-ho about AI and all, like, they kind of slowly started to leave the field and migrate to other fields and all that. And this is when HCI flourished, right? In the 90s and the early 2000s and all that, right? Because they were able to design systems better, because they were able to model human behavior better, because their approaches were different, right? It was, human psychology, it was behavioral studies, it was about perception, it was about ergonomics, and all of that came in, and then, we were able to model, but not to the kind of precision that the original AI guys were trying to do, but then we were able to get to a good state there, right? So we were kind of stuck with that for some time. We were doing that, we are happy with, doing all of that. It seems that, kind of HCI is irreplaceable and kind of very important and essential component of any kind of technology. And therefore, we had our jobs assured, and, our guys were getting paid a lot, you got employed very well, and etc., right? Now, this generative AI comes into the picture, and now it's kind of screwing up the whole thing, right? So what is happening now is that it has a different way of understanding human behavior, right? And it seems to be doing better than us, right? And doing better than or faster than all of that is happening now. Okay. Now, so what is happening here is that now it's now understanding some patterns, right? And it is not understanding human behavior in the sense that we understand human behavior, right? Its way of understanding human behavior is just brute force looking at large patterns of behavior from data sets and all that, right? And therefore, it is able to kind of, guess what is going to be the case if this is the case, right? So it is able to predict things and extrapolate better because it has a huge. So it's like a difference between a guy with a 2-year experience in the field versus a guy with a 40-year experience in the field, right? So what is the difference between between this novice designer and a very experienced designer is that that the experienced designer has been through many problems, many contexts, many situations, and therefore he has thought about many alternatives, and so therefore, and he's kind of cross-pollinating ideas, cross-pollinating situations, and therefore he's got this very rich database of expertise that is built over this 40-year long period, and therefore his judgment is better at situations about what works and what will not work, right? A 2-year-old designer, on the other hand, does not have that, the database yet, right? And if you want to kind of crudely call this as a database, right? But it is a lot more nuanced than a database, right? But AI doesn't care, right? Generative design, I mean, it can just work with very crude information, right? Very unstructured data and all that. So you don't know where it is actually getting the inspiration from, right? Because it is, it's kind of it learns by itself, and all of that happens, right? And therefore it's kind of, have it's able to learn, but in different ways, and and what it produces as insights about human behavior and models of human behavior are as good now, okay, and it is getting better, okay, and that's something that is, we should sit up and look, take notice of. Okay, so this is what basically, I was, I went through this thing, and then, and I want to skip the second part of it, because it might be interesting to people who are into, HCI and, all this research and all. But I want to get to this part quickly, right? Because we don't have a lot of time. The futures of what basically I'm kind of thought about these four scenarios, right? And that's part of my talk also, right? The title of my talk also, that what interaction design might look like, okay? And this is what would be interesting to you also, okay? So yeah, so this and all I talked about HCI winter, and how the AI is being done now and how it understands and all that. This is the part I want to skip a little bit, and then this possible futures is the one that we are going to get to. Okay, so the first scenario is the most optimistic one, and the fourth scenario is the most pessimistic one. Okay, so you choose whatever you want. Okay, so the first one is that this is what is kind of heavily promoted by designers, because this is a very wishful future that we want. Okay, and this is what we would be comfortable with and happy and all that. AI augmented HCI, right? So human-centered design at scale, which was not possible before, right? Your iteration in testing could happen in a small context and with maybe a limited number of users, and that is what will now it can happen in many contexts with huge number of users very easily, right? You can do it at scale. So HCI evolves integrating AI into these traditional frameworks. Okay, so nothing much changes in the way that we do things, but we are able to tap into the power of AI to do whatever we are doing better. Okay, simple as that. Okay, HCI doesn't replace, but it supercharges it. It assists designers, but automating user research, A/B testing, and interface adaptations. Come up. Human-centered design persists, but operates at a scale impossible using traditional methods. Okay. Now this is already happening. Okay, we are already in this future, right? If you ask people in the industry, they will tell you that we are all doing, using AI to do many of these things, normal stuff, right? And a lot of user research and analysis. I mean, interestingly, the analysis that you see coming out of AI is really amazing. Okay, just recently, not just yesterday, me and my colleague worked on we've been working on experimenting with how AI can be used to replace some of the traditional interaction design methods that we use, and therefore can they become part of the curriculum itself, right? So and that's an effort that is kind of taken off in IDC, and soon we will see that some of these proto assignments and proto courses make into way our curriculum also. And I'm sure all of these other places also are doing this, and they have to do this, right? Otherwise, the education becomes kind of irrelevant or kind of not very useful. Okay. My friend, who's Professor Kombate, Pramod Kombate, what he did was he gave one single picture from one of the studies that he is doing, and then asked Gemini 2.5 to analyze it. And it produced fantastic analysis from just that one image. Okay. And this was the context basically where it was an NGO where a teacher was assisting autistic child with some learning activity, and it was a picture that he had taken himself, during one of his field visits. Okay, and that's just to test how the image analysis capacity of these tools were, and it was amazing that it could do so much, and it was performing at a very advanced researcher level. Okay, this is what you would kind of expect from a PhD student. Okay, doing very solid field research, ethnographic related to kind of work and all that. Okay, I'm just giving you as a kind of an example of where all it will pervade, and and that it is here already. Okay, so there is nothing surprising about this. Okay, so examples are AI-driven usability testing, where neural networks predict friction points in interfaces before human testing, right? So we need to have human beings to tell you that this is not working and this is where I'm having difficulty. I'm not able to find this button. Okay, where is this? Where is the screen suddenly disappeared? All of these things kind of surface, right? In a user testing, usability testing. This is what typical usability testing reveals to you, because as a designer, you're kind of so much into the problem that the frictions are invisible to you, and therefore you need to do this, right? And all of this can be actually very easily captured by AI. Okay. Enhanced co-design tools, already we have this Figma assistants which are GPT powered and all that, and a lot of auditing can happen through AI, about ethical users, optimal user engagement, fairness, well-being, etc., etc. Okay. So tension here is, does this enhance human agency in design or make, let's say, a more curation layer over a AI-driven interaction model? So basically, it is like, we are getting to the stage where you are telling the reservation system some of your broad goals, and then it figures out all the sub goals that are required to accomplish this larger goal, and then it does a good job of it, and finally you are looking at it, and you're kind of saying, okay, I'm kind of okay with it, right? And that is it. So already a lot of judgment is taken away from you, because it is built on models like the traditional interaction models, right? That humans used to do it manually, are now are built into the tool itself, right? Like you see Figma assistants, right, which are powered by GPTs. The second scenario is algorithmic interaction. AI as its own UX designer. AI replaces the need for traditional usability and interaction design by dynamically shaping experiences as at the individual level, right? It's kind of, it knows about the user, and there is nothing like a one interface for everybody. That people have different interfaces depending on their use patterns and preferences and behaviors over time and all that. This is all kind of known to the device. The device is able to capture this data, and then it is able to also present the kind of interfaces that is kind of custom made, curated for a single individual rather than a group of individuals, right? So it is like, you're not trying to understand a large user group. I mean, the traditional process that you try to understand a large user group through kind of one um, one persona, but here everybody is a persona, right? So basically, everybody is his own individual persona, and then the interface is custom delivered for those people, right? Um, I mean, this is like kind of this, personalized interfaces, the personalization, customization that traditional interfaces used to allow. But that's a that is a that's a far cry from what is possible, right? You can imagine what is possible now. I mean, in the traditional interface design, customization is that I change my screen color, or font size, or all of these things, like really trivial stuff, right? But this is like, I'm talking about like the customization, which is a lot more deeper to my needs, not the screensaver that I select for my computer laptop screen. Okay. So in this case, what happens in this scenario? What happens? AI doesn't need predefined interaction models. It learns optimal interaction strategies directly from the user data. Okay. Interfaces no longer are designed but emerge from AI-driven optimization, right? So now it's kind of this two-way thing, right? And AI also optimizes user behavior, right? Now before you could be doing something the hard way around or the completely wrong way, and there is nothing in the interface that will prevent you from doing it, right? So this you would have noticed that a novice computer user, for example, would use some kind of a very complicated step to do something which is completely unrequired, right? I mean, for a experienced user, it might look like, why is this? I mean, I see that happen with my parents, for example, using a smartphone, right? They will, because they have learned it in some way, they have this mental model of how how things work, right? Or they have a very poor mental model of how things work. They do some things in a way that is absolutely illogical or very tedious and very roundabout and all of that, right? Now that won't happen at all, right? Because it will optimize your behavior, right? In order to get the best results, and therefore that becomes part of the user data of you, right? And therefore, it's kind of, it optimizes you and it optimizes the system. It kind of, you become better and then the system becomes better also. Examples: adaptive interfaces, systems that morph based on individual interaction history. AI-driven OS that changes based on your habits, eliminating the need for static interface. Invisible UI, interaction moves away from screens into gestures, voice, and predictive automation. I think somebody asked a question related to that. Uh, there is no explicit input required anymore, right? And it's kind of all folded into your behavior, right? And therefore, a lot of things are anticipated and enabled even before you need it. AI is a dynamic intermediary. LLMs mediate interactions with systems instead of clicking through settings, etc. Okay. The tension here is um, AI. If AI optimizes engagement and efficiency without human oversight, what happens to usability, trust, and ethical concerns? Okay. Mhm. Okay. The third scenario is post HCI, okay, which is interaction as a multi-agent system. It ceases to be about users and interfaces. Instead, we interact with AI-mediated ecosystem of agents. Okay, we must have heard about all of that, and a couple of questions are about this, agentic interfaces, interface agents, and all that. Right? AI systems don't just mediate interaction; they become interaction participants, right? So you are kind of so they are also co-participant, or they participate on your behalf. Okay. Instead of designing for users, designers create multi-agent systems where AI and humans co-evolve interaction styles dynamically. Okay. Interfaces dissolve into conversational, social, and network AI entries. Okay, so they kind of become very like the agents and the humans will the boundary between them will blur, right? So it will be as good as you know they will become as good as, for example, you are not able to attend an important meeting, your agent can attend on your behalf, and the person who is meeting with you can fully trust your agent to communicate, or basically basically that you and your agent are the same, right? And basically there is nothing like um, you can basically the agent can do that and all that. Right now we are at a phase where you're able to send your bots to Zoom meetings and then take notes and record and stuff like that, right? I don't know if there are any bots in this session. So that happens now increasingly. That this is when I attend sessions where there are people who are not able to make it to the meeting, are kind of deploying bots to attend the meeting on their behalf, and they just passively listen and then summarize the meeting to them. Okay, so to that extent it is okay, but then it can eventually become these agents who can uh, represent in the fullest capacity of who you are. Uh, Examples: AI as a social actor instead of static UI elements. Users engage in multi-agent conversations. Um, where different AI models negotiate, advise, and interact. For example, a committee of AI assistants is specializing in different domains. Personalized interaction dialects. AI adapts not just its responses, but its entire communication style over uh, and is overused. So basically, it's you're kind of talking about very personalized communication style between you and your AI, right? And your kind of personalized AI agent, right? Which means that you not be any inputs. First of all, we saw that it need not be even conversation. It could be gestures, it could be nods, it could be some kind of a like a lingo that you develop between. So some it could be spoken non-verbal communications, right? And the kind of relationship that we have with people who are very close to us, right? So, for example, your parents understand you very well, right? And a relationship between spouses, for example, are very subtle, right? Some person is in a particular mood, for example, is upset, angry, happy, sad, tired, very energetic. All of that, is inferred through the multiple cues that are available to us as humans, to other humans, right? So AI will be able to actually understand all of these cues and then will present you with problems and choices at the appropriate time in order to optimize everything, right? So, and then therefore, it's almost like human to human behavior. But, and this, yeah. And then the last scenario is the most um, uh, extreme of it, AI first design, the end of human-centered thinking. AI stops being a tool for humans, and instead humans become participants in a AI optimized environment. Okay, so this is where actually governments and states and there could be some larger humanity goal, right? Goal of human beings, right? For example, one larger human goal for humanity would, I would think, is that that we do not go extinct, right? That we do not self whatever, right? Obliterate ourselves, through whatever global warming, etc., all of that, or wars and stuff like that, right? So if that is the goal, then there could be some AI which ensures that that does not happen, right? And therefore everything is optimized for that, right? I mean, for example, a government can decide that we need to reduce pollution, or we have to eradicate poverty, or want to remove disease from the society altogether. All of that, right? All of them are noble causes, right? And it could be a collective decision. It could be a representative government that decides that everybody wants it and all that, right? But then the way that it actually plays out is that everything that you are doing is optimized to achieving that goal, right? And then AI is optimizing for that, right? And then you might end up losing a lot of your freedoms, and therefore essentially what makes you a human being. Mhm. So AI first workplaces, Google search at scale, and AI first design makes interaction design frictionless, but does remove meaningful human choice in altogether. So basically, we stop being humans and we become something else altogether. Okay. So these are the possibilities, and all of them are, very plausible futures. And rather than seeing them as four different scenarios, I'm kind of seeing them as a continuum, right? That we are at the stage one already, and very soon we'll get to the stage two, and then stage three and four are not too far away. Okay. With that uplifting message, I'm going to close the talk and then invite comments and discussion. Over to you, Harsha. Harsh.
Um, yeah, thank you so much, sir. We are really delighted by the depth and clarity you brought to this very complex topic, and often a topic which is very difficult at times to understand. And you have given so much for the students to reflect upon, and maybe perhaps a few things to reimagine as well.
Hmm.
So now we will open the floor to a few questions that we already received from the students.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question is, what skills, tools, and mindsets should upcoming interaction designers develop to stay relevant as AI becomes deeply integrated into the design process? And also a follow-up question on this is, how does this apply for designers transitioning from other domains like textiles or product design?
Hmm. Is this part
Over
of
to
the
you, sir.
question that you sent? Is it in that list of questions that you sent?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, we basically sent you some context as
Okay,
well so
okay.
that you can get
So
an
yeah,
idea.
it's become core part of design
Yeah,
practice, the skill set. Yeah, so it's
yeah,
kind of what I can tell you is that right now we do not know very specific skill set. Like for example, 3 years ago, I was telling all my interaction design students to learn coding. Okay. And I was like bugging them to learn coding, and then now it looks like, I may not be telling them to do that anymore, right? And this change, the kind of, the ground is shifting so quickly under us, it's very difficult to like zero on a particular set of skills and then go about achieving them. But what I would say is I mean, I think the question is very nice in the sense that, it is not asking for, what tools or skill set that I should uh, learn or have, but mindset that I should have also, right? So that's really nice, the way to look at it, right? So you need to kind of develop a very resilient mindset and a kind of very open to possibilities kind of a mindset, right? And not be dogmatic about who you are, where you come from, and what you are entitled to, etc., right? Because all of that is up for grabs right now. Okay, so if you remain kind of nimble and flexible and open, and you have a better way of kind of negotiating this difficult period ahead of us. Okay, so and then the second one is this transitional moment where AI is becoming embedded in design practice. How can educators balance human-centric design foundations with the opportunities and risks of AI, especially across generations of faculty, students, and different technological literacies and all that? Okay, so it seems like a kind of a um, okay, so yeah, it's very hard, right? I mean, we are, ourselves in that kind of a place right now. No, within our own faculty, we have 35 faculty members. There is very different perceptions. There are people who are kind of, hardcore, they just don't believe in AI at all, and then they kind of, I believe, living in denial. And there are also people who are kind of enthusiastically embraced and then trying to experiment it with it, and introducing it into their curriculum and figuring out ways by which student can learn to design with these new tools. I think you will see more of the later than the former. Okay, I think I've seen also over the last year or so some of these hardcore skeptics now turning into believers, right? And that's a good sign. And I hope that places like NID it also happens. And I suspect that it might happen slower at NID and and, and so maybe you will have to be the guys who are pushing for those kinds of changes, right? And so you should do that. The rise of autonomous AI systems pose tricky challenge. How do we ensure design continues to serve human needs, values, and context instead of being shaped primarily by technological possibilities? So AI takes, see, this is a typical technological problem, right? And technology has never cared for the appropriate application of that technology, right? So whoever comes up with the technology have already done a lot of work in coming up with the technology, okay? And therefore they have earned the right to just do whatever they want with it without thinking about the consequences of what they are bringing as a consequence of the technology. And they should be allowed to make the money that they want to make with the technology. Okay. And so I am all for, people who are inventing at the cutting edge of technology and doing all this very hard things, right? And it's they you cannot put the burden on them saying that you have to also take care of human needs. You have to also worry about ethics. You also have to be sensitive to what it is doing to the society and how it is damaging the society, our environment and etc., right? So so what we as designers do is that, see, we work in the mostly the technology application part of it, right? So we kind of translate technology into solutions, or we work on how technology can be applied to human context and users and appropriate users and all that, right? So by creating, solutions and products and situations that are more appropriate than what they are currently is would be the kind of the responsibility that we have. Okay, and therefore, we need to have a very deep understanding of technology and an appreciation for what how this has come about, right? And all the constraint that it has and and only then, we will be able to kind of, fully exploit what it can do. And and if it is not doing it the correct, if it's not being applied in the right manner at the moment, can be applied in a better manner in the future. Okay. So we cannot be detached from what happens with the technology, and I see that a lot happen with the design community, that they don't fully understand the technology, but then they are the number one critics of those technologies, right? And and therefore the ideas around how they might be applied and all are also very superficial, right? And it might, while serve some solve some issues, but it might not solve other issues. Okay. So we need to think very deep, and we need to get into this technology development pipeline much earlier than where we are now. Okay, we are kind of at the tail end of this whole thing, right? It's kind of developed and given to us, and we kind of figure out how to apply it well. uh, but we need to be there. That means that you become conversant with technology, right? And you have to get there. So if you guys are coming from backgrounds in some kind of a core discipline before design, I think I'm talking about the MDes students, right? You have actually a advantage over the rest, okay? And you should actually exploit that advantage, right? Uh, and So you come from an engineering background, right? So that means that you spend like 4 years in somewhere else, right? And that somewhere else is a good place to spend, actually, in a design education, actually. Okay. And I'm kind of skeptical about getting into design education too early at the bachelor level. And I hope that I'm not offending any of these bachelor students over here. But then you need to have something before you get here, and that something is what actually I'm talking about, this in a pipeline, whichever pipeline that is. Okay. r- okay, the fourth. Okay, many designers are curious about the practical side. How exactly can AI be woven into their everyday process beyond being shiny tool for quick outputs? How can AI actually support research, ideation, prototyping? Yeah, I mean, this is where a lot of experimentation should happen, right? And it's not about creating a nice presentation out of an AI tool, and all of that, out creating a nice summary, or putting out a nice write up about your work and so on, right? And this is essentially where it is used at the moment. But I mentioned about this specific use of a image analysis that we did, right? It's part of the research, and this is what researchers do, and they have a lot of methodologies, like very well established conventional research methodology to analyze images, or analyze information in any kind of a context. For example, right? It could be from video, it could be observation, it could be through artifacts that are present in the context, right? It could be context of use, etc., etc., right? So this is a very hardcore research activity, and there is very interesting use of it, and we didn't know that it could do so well. Okay. And there were things that now it's kind of bordering into something really crazy. For example, this tool, just by looking at that picture I was talking to it about, was able to infer that this child is autistic. Okay. And there is nothing in the picture that gives that indication, because it looks like a kind of this teacher assisting a kid to play with something, right? And there is it kind of like extremely very well detailed about what was happening there, and who was the kid, and what is the teacher trying to do, and in fact even said what is the activity that she is doing. Okay. And it's a kind of this standard activity that is used in the learning, in assisting with the learning specific skill set in autistic children. Okay. It's called the stacking of objects, right? So it's basically colorful plastic, progressively smaller sized, from bigger to smaller size, and then they are supposed to stack, and it kind of helps them develop certain motor skills, right? All of that it inferred from a photo taken in an NGO. This is not like some kind of a very kind of the standard setups, right? That education for special needs kind of setups normally have, right? So you kind of guess that it is probably the same thing. Therefore, this could be the proper activity, right? This was in a rural setting, and this was on makeshift tables, and this lady was like wearing a sari and all that, and the kid was wearing like, they were all like, sitting in this very, small table and doing all of that stuff. It looked like, I mean, a living room of somebody, and if you show it to a person, then they will say that no, maybe the mother and the child are, playing with something, and or something like that, or the child is playing with something and the mother is just looking at him while he's doing it, or something like that. That would be the like a non expert observation of that. But this went into a lot of things, and it was able to even detect. So we were wondering that, I mean, generally, one of the criticism about AI is that it is overconfident about what it tells you, right? And that leads to a lot of problems, right? The kind of presents paper that don't exist and stuff like that, right? Presents very believable citations and so on. So was it doing something like that? The initial reaction was that, it's kind of doing things that are not even possible, right? I mean, because where is the visual data present in the picture that tells it that, that this child could potentially possibly be an autistic child, right? And then it turns out that, uh, in medical imaging, there are things that AI sees that a doctor cannot see with the naked eye. Okay. And therefore, there is some other way to look at the information in a medical imaging that even the experts don't know what it is looking at and how it is figuring out things, right? So we are suspecting that something on those lines is happening with the image analysis experiment that we did yesterday. Okay. And that there is something in the photograph that is telling, it's kind of embedded, right? It's kind of completely hidden from human observation, yet it is evident to, because it's a digital photograph, right? I'm sure there must be something, that some metadata or whatever it is, right? Somewhere it is inferring that thing, right? Now, it could be that it is overconfident, right? But given the visual evidence, it's just not possible to do it, right? And the, my friend is saying that, my colleague is saying that it is kind of, doing that, right? Which is that, it's called, it's doing what is called as this predictive, uh, it's not a generative AI. I mean, although it looks like a generative AI, it's actually a predictive AI. Okay. And you look up the difference between generative and predictive AI, just Google it, you can learn more about it. Okay. So these are the various, actually we want to get, designers to use AI. Okay. Now,
So,
yeah,
yeah, sir.
we are,
So, while we are thinking about this topic, so there is a question which is slightly maybe related. We have from audience. It
sure,
says
sure.
that
We'll,
how artificial AGI and ASI will change the designing path.
hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so the one interesting observation from experts that I have heard is that, there is nothing like a point or a day in which AI with AGI will arrive, right? And we won't know that it has even arrived, right? So there is nothing like a singularity or whatever it is, right? So it's going to be very progressive and kind of we can't even discern that it is happening, and we are like, inexorably moving towards that. Okay. And it is the degree of AGI that we are at now. Okay. We are not 100% AGI, but we are some percent AGI already. Okay. And then, this will evolve over time that, you will not know that, AGI has been achieved, right? So things as you will see that are getting better, right? For example, AI tools, even just in the last 6 months, last 1 year, there has been leaps, and everything that we thought could be the next version and all is happening like in the next day itself, right? So yeah, I mean, does that answer your question? I hope that it answers your question. I see.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Any other
So
yeah,
not
yeah, I
right
will
now.
take some. Yeah, I would like to, because I've been talking for the last 1 hour or so. I
Yeah,
would really love to hear you guys speak, other people from the audience. I see Rasage in the audience. Wow. Good.
yeah.
Rasage, thanks for joining. Rasage was my first Indian student. I mean, he was in the first group of students that I taught in India,
That's great.
in NID Bangalore. Hey, Rasage, how are you? How did you know about this event? I wanted to tell you that,
I was actually
uh, uh,
I was actually teaching the information design batch this
uh,
week, and Chakrada
oh,
mentioned about this
okay.
session, so I decided to make sure I
Oh,
any chance to listen to you is always
oh,
great. So
great,
this
great.
is fun.
So it's people like Rasagya that kind of motivate me to work on these kind of things. Yeah. So in fact, we just had a call, call last week, and I was telling about these kinds of things that we are doing in IDC, and we are developing. We kind of trying to look at what we are teaching, and questioning ourselves whether is this even relevant to teach anymore, and questioning all of the the assumptions that we think about what it needs to what needs to go into an education of an interaction designer, right? And so, I mean, we are doing this on a very urgent basis, right? So that, because the AI doesn't seem to be waiting for us, right? We cannot take the usual time to, to go through some kind of a curriculum review and all that. So whoever, at various stages of engagement with AI are all trying out various things. Some of us are slightly ahead, some of us slightly behind, but we are not waiting for everybody to catch up to do this. And as I was telling Rasagya, right, I'm kind of introducing proto assignments in my already existing courses, and then hopefully I want to also develop them into proto courses themselves, which are kind of not at all like any other existing course. And then eventually, I'll get sufficient traction in what I do that it becomes part of the mainstream curriculum also, right? So that is the idea. Okay, so anybody else? And
We have a few questions from
yeah.
Praveen Nahar sir. He messaged them to us.
Oh,
So,
great.
yeah, the first question being, in this transitional moment where AI is becoming embedded in design practice, how can educators balance human-centric design foundations?
Yeah, this is a question that was there. I answered it. I went through that. Yeah, yeah, in the beginning
Oh,
of the. So this was in the beginning of. I went through this question. I remember that. So is there anybody else who was here who wants to talk?
it,
No, I want to hear somebody live. Okay, not somebody's
Last one more
question
question.
read. Okay, Rasagya, why don't you say that question? No, why don't you talk about that question? Yeah, please go ahead, Rasagya.
Perfect. No, sorry, I think I wasn't able to unmute myself earlier. So I, because you had mentioned proto assignments, I was
Mm.
curious if you could maybe give one or two examples of
Mm.
proto assignments for the class. I
Mm.
don't know many design education schools or educators in India that are running like AI courses beyond just introducing yet another tool into the
Mm.
process, right? So could you talk a bit about some of the interesting assignments that you're trying or exercises that you're trying?
Yeah, yeah. So so just to give because you said that so Kirti Trivedi in Indore, right, with CDS has in collaboration with one of his faculties, I forget his name, has developed an entire foundational design course, right, using a kind of the AI first thing, right? So students are working with the AI, and is documented well. I think I will not do purpose justice to it, just to describe it in a few minutes. But I have asked them to publish it, right? Because I've never seen anything like that. Okay, it is not it's not a standard foundation year course, and then with some application of AI into it, but it's kind of conceived from inside out, to be AI. Okay. So that is one thing that, in fact, that was also kind of this inspiration to do something on our own, right? So the research methods was right. In the interaction, I teach a course called Interaction Design Studio in the second semester. So first year, second semester, they do this course. So we have done some experiments with how students can um, conduct research, right? I mean, research in the sense that, now we kind of go to field or do some contextual inquiry or um, uh, look through video and then do some video analysis and all that, right? So some of those things, we are using AI to do, kind of this suite of AI, right? So it is, some image AI tools, image generation AI tools, and then there is also the normal, ChatGPT kind of tools as well. And we are also running multiple AI tools to check the fidelity of the outputs and then, see where the commonalities lie, where they differs. And we are also kind of assessing which tool is good at what, right? And seeing this very interesting mix, right? So it's not like one tool is good at everything, but what one tool is able to do good in some tools, but suddenly it's not performing so well in other things. So it's also about assessing and kind of recommending to our students what are the yeah, uh, the strengths and weaknesses of some tools, and the caution that you have to uh, exercise in using this particular tool in this kind of situation, right? I'm sorry, I'm kind of talking a little bit vague because I'm not prepared to talk about this, but since you raised this question, I think it would be a question that everybody would be interested in. What are we doing and what does a proto assignment look like, right? And so I will prepare for it and then share it with you.
Sir, we have a question in the chat box by
Okay.
Mrunmoy. As designers, we tend to automate and streamline a lot of users' journey or experiences. But is it also taking away the feeling of being in control? In what ways can we ensure users still feel that they are in charge and aren't taking the backseat entirely?
Yeah, so you're kind of assuming that users need to be in charge, right? So in fact, that was one of the principles of the what I would call as a old interaction design, right? Where you do not take control away from this. So users should feel that they are in control all the time, right? And they become very frustrated and anxious if the control is taken away from them, right? In those kinds of interfaces, right? And therefore, it was very important, right? So things behave in a predictable manner. It happens in a certain period of time. If there is a delay, they are informed about the delay. Okay, if the process is going on, and you know how much time it is taking to complete the process, and what stage of completion of the process you are at. All of that are all the 101 of interface design, right? Like you're uploading something, downloading something, you're installing something. You are being informed about what is happening all the time, and that is part of being in control, right? What is the meaning of being in control, right? You kind of know what is happening, right? And you are not informed about what is happening, right? When you don't know what's happening, then that's when you lose control, right? So the traditional interaction design principles are about giving control and retaining control with the users, right? And therefore the users feel empowered about it, and then they can kind of do what they want to do it. And if they do something, they can actually reverse their action, they can redo the whole action, they can take back their actions, just like what. So that is the meaning of control. Okay, I do something and then I will be able to do it. So you are at no point of time you are not in control, right? So if we are in that same mindset, right, and therefore what AI does seem to be that the kind of counterintuitive, right, to what we learn in the traditional interaction design as a traditional interaction design principle, right? You're taking away the control, right? But that is the essential feature of AI, right? It wants to take control, right? And not that it wants to take control of your agency, but then you are better off letting that control to the AI, right? So you kind of reach a state where you feel that, or you feel confident that, and you trust its decision to the point that you are actually letting go of the control, right? So when you let go of the control, then there is no question of why should a user feel that he's not, or she's not in control. So that's okay with me, right? So so the decisions, in the future, right, they will be making better decisions than most of us for many things. Okay. And therefore you will relegate the thinking and the deciding and the judgment part increasingly more and more to AI, and that would be okay, in that world, right? So, because there are a lot of people who are running around making very bad decisions in this world, right? And it's better that they don't do those good things on their own. So, if much of that is done by some on their behalf by something else, maybe that's good, right? So, um, so you kind of willingly are getting into this situation, right, where you are allowing this control to be taken away from you. Okay, and there will be, of course, solutions and rebel pockets there where that control will not be given, right? People would want to retain that control. So there will be this small parallel world that will exist, and there will be services and products in that world also, right? But I see that it become increasingly small.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We have a question from Shreya. How do you envision conversational interfaces evolving beyond traditional chatbots into experiences that feel more natural and seamlessly woven into our daily lives?
Hmm. So we have gotten to a stage where it's kind of able to understand natural language, right? You don't have to speak in a specific way. We have moved a long way from these kind of IVRS kind of interfaces, right? Or interactive voice, what is it called? Some IVR interface. So interactive voice responses, right? So it's like this, you call a call center and it tells you that press one to speak to, if this is your problem, press two and all that, right? It's interactive, but it takes you through this linear choices, and you are able to do your transaction over a telephone line, right? And that's like something, and it is very cheap to do it because the company can deploy all of these things and then reduce actual human person to be on the other hand to able to answer. So if many of these things can be sorted by interactive choices you present to the users, and like for example, if you're checking your balance and all that, you don't need to talk to somebody, right? You kind of press, and it may actually work in the case of checking balances and all that, right? Because it's a kind of this very private transaction you want to do, and you don't want anybody to be involved in letting you know how much money you have as a balance in your bank, right? So it's a kind of an appropriate solution, but it's kind of this very, it's an interface design product. It's a very interesting, and it came in like 40 years ago, right? With conventional phones. And so from that onwards, and then there was also, rather than pressing buttons in your keypad, then it became that you could say some words and then it understands certain words, right? But it had problems with the understand. So it's not like you can talk like I am talking to you now, but you'll have to say some key phrases and words in order for you to get your task accomplished. And then to a stage where we are now, where it's become a lot more natural. You can say something natural and it gets transcribed as text first and processed as text only, right? So that is where we are at, right? So we are at this phase where it is still text processing. It's prompt and it's understanding natural text, naturally spoken text, which is transcribed. Even though you speak it, sometimes what you speak is shown on the screen. Sometimes it is not even shown on the screen. Therefore, you think that it is processing your speech. Actually, it is not processing your speech. It is processing your uh, voice transcribed to text, and it's processing that text. Okay, so but so the next stage would be that I was talking about it. I kind of gave indications of what is going to happen, right? And so it's going to be very natural, right? So it will be a kind of a multimodal, right? So it will be a combination of gestures and grunts and nods and and the tonality of your speech, all the nuances of how we understand human speech, right? Like the kind of pauses that I give in my speech when something is important, and I kind of say something louder or something softer when I am conspiratorial or gossipy, and versus I'm shouting at somebody because I'm angry. I'm kind of pleading with somebody. There is a different tonal quality to my voice, etc. Right? All of that now will become understandable, right? So it will be all machine readable, and therefore it will become a lot more natural. Yes.
Thank you,
And
Professor. Yeah. Sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
please.
You were continuing.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, please go ahead. I'm just worried about the time also here. Yeah, you guys are
Yeah,
kind of
we'll just
keeping.
take last two questions.
Hmm.
So yeah, we have a question from Shruti. She's referring to the example that you gave about the autistic child and
Hmm.
how it helps in analyzing the primary research. So
Hmm.
if you could shed some light in what other examples can this be used so that it helps designers in their field study. So when they're going for field study, how does that be like? How is it relevant, and what is the dependency of reliance on that analysis?
Hmm. Okay, so it's a very good question. So this was just an experiment we did with one image only, right? So the next steps would be to try with multiple images, right? Also with other, media like audio, supply it with audio, supply it with video, and then see how it does that. Okay. That's with that. So what my own sense about this whole thing is, with my with our initial attempts is that we can deploy a whole range of tools to analyze context and situations in a much more comprehensive manner, in a much quicker way than what we can humanly do very, very soon, or even with current tools itself. Hmm? So, for example, you go to site visits and, kind of interview users and, observe things and, um, you know, maybe spend multiple times, all of that, can be, even to do those things, will become much easier and much better, right? So these would be the things. And then it comes to the next level where it is able to actually read more than what you can as a researcher see, right? So we are not fully confident that how good that is, right? But we can talk to other people and kind of try to understand what happened with this particular image analysis. How is it able to tell that this kid was autistic, right? um, and then we have to this just happened yesterday, right? So we'll have to look at more. And there are also that other experiments that my colleague Dr. Pramod did, with interviews, not just interviews, but also coming up with interview questions, right? Kind of preparing you to an interview, right? You actually want to go there, in person, talk to actual real people and all that. But then the preparation that you upfront, right, in getting to that point is also, done extremely well using standard, GPT kind of tools. Okay. Again, what he is doing is he's kind of using multiple tools, kind of cross-checking the quality of them. He's also kind of, really working with different types of prompting. Okay. I think he's able to extract a lot better results than some of us are, simply because he knows how to prompt it, right? So it's also, and the reason why he's also able to do better prompting is because he's also a more experienced researcher, okay, trained in conventional research methodology. You understand what I'm saying, right? So normal person cannot get the same results like he's getting it, okay, simply because he's got more research experience than most of us, okay. So all of this is, tells us that it's not something that, tomorrow, these tools will replace a very seasoned, experienced researcher. It will still remain as a good tool, but a tool that can give, very comprehensive results with very limited resources. And some of the scale at which it can do is something that we would not have been possible at all. Okay. So yeah, this is where, it can be really powerful. Okay, the
We,
last question, right?
yeah,
Yes.
we'll wrap this session with the last question. With more AI agents and automated systems being deployed, the number of identities needing governance goes beyond just human users. How do you think design practices should evolve to handle this shift, especially when these systems start acting autonomously?
Yeah, it's a uh, yeah, you mean that, how do you deal with so many of them? Okay, so basically, those also will be So it's not like, you are managing this 10 automated systems yourself, right? 5 of those automated systems can be managed by one automated system, right? And that automated system is what you are actually managing. Okay. In a way that you're kind of delegating responsibilities and some of these things, right, to other uh, automated agents themselves, right? So it's, we are kind of getting to that, the earlier model that I was talking about this, what are good IT solutions, right? IT solutions are things that kind of anticipate. So it still requires a lot of design and all that, right? But that design requires a lot of thinking and subject matter expertise about how some of the systems work. How does the medical system work? How does the reservation system work? How does finance and banking work, for example, right? Somebody with very deep domain understanding will only be able to provide the best solution, right? That works in such systems. Similarly, the initial configuration of this automated system will require people with very deep expertise in AI as well as in whatever domains are these going to be used, right? To be involved in designing and how these automated systems interact with each other and all that. But I think that eventually some of these eventually will also co-evolve, and the AI systems will be able to figure things out, right? Like how do they plug into some other system, for example? How do they work with some completely alien system, for example, right? So all of that, may not require very explicit designing, but it might be something that AI should be able to figure it out itself. Okay. So right now, I think the bottleneck is that it doesn't have all the knowledge base that is required to do that, right? So everything when that becomes machine readable, a lot of things will go out of place. Like for example, my favorite example is that that websites will not look like the websites that we see now, right? Because it's all human readable, right? And when it is important that the information that you have on your website is actually part of some LLM, then you optimize it for it, right? Because that's more important. It's more important that an LLM has your website information than it is readable by human beings, right? So a lot of even information design and a lot of human facing solutions that we see will start to um, be designed with machine facing, right? So they all should be machine readable, right? Everything, right? Everything is machine readable. That would be the primary way that they are designed. And then, by the way, it is also human readable would be a good thing to have it. But then, they are good at, then maybe humans don't need to know those information, right? So you go to a website to get some information from that place, right? But if something knows that information, that and then you want to have a very specific information about it, and that's reliable, trustworthy, etc. We are not there yet. Okay? Then you would rather go there and then rather than going through NID website and going through some 100 pages before getting the information that you want, right? So that is where. So the NID website will be machine readable more than it is human readable, for example, right? That would be kind of this outcome of what will happen. It's optimized for the machine. Okay.
So we'll wrap up the session. Thank you, Professor, for your time, especially because the lecture got extended a little. Insights and generosity in sharing your expertise with us. We also thank all of our participants, attendees for joining us and making this an engaging start to this year's symposium series. We hope this conversation inspires you to think more critically, more imaginatively, and even a little more playfully about the role of AI in design. Do stay connected with us through our Instagram handle and keep registering for our future events. Until then, keep designing, keep questioning, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much once again for joining us.
Thank you so much,
guys.
Professor.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, really enjoyed this session. And Harsh, this is being
Yeah.
recorded. I suppose it will be available sometime.
Yeah, we'll upload this on our YouTube channel. I'll share the
Well,
link with you.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor.
Have a good evening, guys.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
same. Bye. Thank you, guys.